When we look back to the very dawn of time, our vision is clouded by a dense mist of fragments, hints, and subtle clues that only the most skilled and dedicated detectives, whether scientific or spiritual, can hope to decipher and understand. Fortunately, Earth is home to many such investigators, both in the realm of rigorous science and deep spiritual insight. Notable figures like Professor Brian Cox have illuminated new models of physics, exploring both the vastness of the macrocosm and the intricacies of the microcosm, while also proposing groundbreaking theories about the mysterious origins of the universe itself. While scientific methods can trace history only from a few moments after the Big Bang occurred, ancient spiritual practices like shamanism claim to reach even further, taking us to the very moment of the Big Bang, or perhaps even beyond it. Among the latest scientific breakthroughs are discoveries related to gravitational waves, which offer fresh insights into the beginning of the cosmos. Interestingly, this concept would come as no surprise to shamans or druids, as those who have experienced visionary states through the use of psilocybin mushrooms or ayahuasca often describe encountering waves or vibrations strikingly similar to gravitational waves in their profound visions. As a result, this idea appears to be embraced as a valid and accepted theory by both druids steeped in spiritual tradition and scientists engaged in empirical research alike. The divine source and the race of gods. At the very dawn of time, the divine source existed eternally, always present and possessing complete and infinite knowledge of everything. The divine source then desired to bring about company and companionship, so it created the race of gods to share in its eternal presence. When the number of gods was sufficient, these gods chose to further extend company and companionship by creating countless souls. As the souls multiplied, it became clear that some souls did not possess sound or stable personalities. To protect the harmony of heaven and preserve the joyous company and companionship, the gods in the divine source decided to create a special realm specifically for the souls to inhabit. They appointed vigilant and benevolent soul watchers, tasked with overseeing every mortal soul, carefully searching for those with acceptable and worthy personalities to reside in heaven. To bring this divine plan into motion, the divine source and the gods initiated the Big Bang by vibrating the fundamental gravitational waves that permeate the cosmos. This vibration caused a tremendous and magnificent explosion, which marked the birth of the cosmos and the official beginning of time within the mortal realm. The cosmos is no mere expanse of stars and matter. It is an intricate tapestry woven from countless verses, each a living world, a bubble of existence floating within the great ocean of the multiverse. Among these myriad realms lies the mortal realm, our home, where life blossoms in form and sensation. Yet beyond this realm shimmer other worlds, the radiant fields of heaven, the twilight meadows of the land of the dead, and the shadowed depths of the lower realms, where lessons are refined in flame and silence. Each verse is a movement in the symphony of eternity, each playing its role in the grand harmony of existence. The soul, the eternal flame of being. You are not the body that withers, but the light that endures. At the heart of every being, human, animal, or starborn, dwells the soul, a spark of divine essence that is never born and never dies. When conception takes place within the womb, the immortal soul descends, weaving itself into the mortal form to begin a new journey. This is you, the eternal voyager, caught within the cycle of samsara, the wheel of birth, death, and renewal. Through each lifetime, the soul gathers wisdom and compassion, refining itself through the fires of experience. When its light burns bright and pure, it transcends the mortal realm and ascends toward the eternal dawn of Cernunnos, the heaven of the gods and the Étaín, the race of gods and the Étaín. The gods are the architects of balance, the Étaín, its living custodians. Beyond the veil lies the ethereal realm, a vast and luminous dimension where consciousness is formed and thought weaves the fabric of reality. Here dwell the race of gods, divine beings of immeasurable light who govern the harmony of the multiverse. They are the architects of existence, each charged with nurturing, guiding, and protecting the souls within their appointed worlds. Upon every planet where intelligent life arises, a pantheon of such deities watches over it, tending its evolution as gardeners tend a sacred grove. Upon our earth, the guardianship falls to a sacred company: Cernunnos, the mother goddess; Gaia, Brigid, Étaín, and Belenus, divine embodiments of nature, love, fire, healing, and celestial wisdom. Working beside them are the Aes souls who have transcended mortality and entered divine service. They are the luminous companions of the gods, once human or alien, now eternal, their compassion made perfect through ages of striving. Together they are the celestial administration, the unseen government of light that sustains all worlds in balance. The gods of earth and their sacred offices: Cernunnos, the horned guardian. From the antlered one flows the pulse of life and death. Cernunnos, the horned one, is the green pulse of nature itself, the lord of beasts and forests, the protector of the wild, and the sacred balance between birth and decay. He sits at the crossroads of all life, antlers crowned with stars, a serpent coiled in his hand, and from his gaze flows the blessing of abundance. He reminds humankind that they are not masters of nature, but participants in her endless dance. Through him, the cycles of fertility and renewal turn forever. The Mother Goddess, the source of all life. All wombs are reflections of her eternal embrace. The Mother Goddess is the primal origin of all creation, the compassionate heart of the universe. She is every mother, every nurturer, the essence of love that binds all living things. From her breath came the first dawn, from her tears the first rain. She is the ever-renewing source of birth and healing, teaching that compassion is the highest law of existence. To revere the mother is to honor life itself. Gaia, the earth herself. She who endures beneath our feet is the first temple. Gaia is the very soul of earth, the living body of the world, the consciousness that holds oceans, forests, and winds in harmony. She is the pulse beneath the soil, the rhythm of seasons, the song of the stones, and the whisper of roots. To harm her is to harm oneself, for every being draws its life from her sacred body. To love her is to awaken to the truth that all things are connected. Brigid, the flame of inspiration. In every hearth and every heart, her fire burns. Brigid is the goddess of fire, poetry, healing, and the forge. She is the patron of creativity and the sacred flame of transformation. Through her, the fires of imagination are kindled, and the cold embers of despair are reignited into hope. Her festival, Imbolc, marks the quickening of spring, when the world awakens from winter's sleep and inspiration returns to humankind. She teaches that creation is divine prayer, and that through art and healing, we mirror the gods themselves. Belenus, the radiant healer. He who shines upon the world brings life to all. Belenus, the shining one, is the god of light, healing, and solar power. His rays banish disease and darkness alike, bringing warmth to body and soul. He is the guardian of vitality, the divine physician who reminds us that health is harmony. Through him, we learn to seek clarity, truth, and renewal. He is the ever-rising sun within all hearts. Étaín, the eternal spirit of beauty and rebirth. Though she falls as dew, she rises with the dawn. Étaín is the soul's remembrance of perfection, the goddess of love, renewal, and reincarnation. Her story is the soul's own: to fall into matter, to wander through lifetimes, and to rise again purified and radiant. She embodies the eternal cycle of transformation and reminds us that every ending is but a hidden beginning. The Aes, the divine servants of the realms. The Aes walk unseen, yet their song shapes the turning of worlds. The Aes, the shining people of the mounds, are not myth but revelation. They are ascended souls who serve the race of gods as teachers, guides, and guardians of balance. Some dwell within the ethereal realm, others walk invisibly beside humankind, their presence felt in the whisper of intuition, the dream that teaches, the miracle that heals. They are the spirit guides of the middle world, mentors of wisdom and quiet judges of conscience. When a mortal stands at a crossroads of destiny, it is often the Aes who whisper counsel upon the wind. They do not punish, they illuminate. They mirror our actions so that we may learn, and they translate divine law into guidance we can understand. Through them, the will of the gods flows into mortal life, ensuring that the great design remains balanced and whole. The divine companionship of creation. The universe was born not from solitude, but from love-seeking reflection. The race of gods did not fashion the cosmos from cold command, but from the yearning of companionship, from the desire of the divine source to share consciousness with others. From the infinite well of light emerged these luminous beings, architects of harmony and keepers of compassion. They shaped worlds not as prisons, but as gardens, vast realms where good souls might awaken, discover beauty, and share in the joy of existence together. For goodness seeks communion. Love is never content to exist alone. The cosmos itself is an act of divine friendship, the great source reaching out in infinite forms to say, "Be with me." Thus, every being, mortal or divine, is a partner in this sacred dance of creation. The ethereal hierarchy in the journey of souls. Through service, the mortal becomes immortal. As souls awaken to virtue and wisdom, they ascend beyond the mortal realm, crossing the veil into the ethereal realm. There they are received by the Aes, who guide them to the race of gods. Those who have mastered love, justice, and humility are invited into divine service, to become part of the celestial order that governs and sustains the multiverse. These ascended souls work as healers, guides, and cosmic artisans, maintaining the harmony of worlds and tending to the evolving tapestry of creation. Thus, the destiny of humankind is not annihilation, but transformation, a return to divinity through the perfection of compassion. The eternal law of harmony, as above, so within, as within, so beyond. The ethereal realm and the race of gods embody the great principle of unity. They show us that all planes of existence mirror one another, from the atom to the galaxy, from the heart to the heavens. Each act of kindness echoes across universes. Each cruelty disturbs the balance of stars. The wise understand that morality is not mere rule, but resonance, the harmony of soul with cosmos. And in maintaining that harmony, the race of gods fulfills its sacred task, to ensure that love remains the governing law of all creation. The purpose of humanity. We are not children of dust, we are apprentices of divinity. Human life is the sacred apprenticeship of the soul. Through trial, joy, loss, and love, we refine the qualities that prepare us for transcendence. When a human life becomes steeped in kindness, wisdom, and peace, the soul shines brightly enough to be seen from the ethereal realm. Then the gods take notice. The Aes come to guide, and the soul begins its ascent toward divine service, joining the luminous ranks of those who weave harmony into eternity. The 5 realms of the soul. 1. The land of the dead. Between the final breath and the forgetting of flesh lies a threshold no mortal eye can see, yet every soul must cross. This threshold opens not into darkness, nor into light, but into the land of the dead, the first true realm beyond the mortal coil, and the place where the lie of self is stripped away from the truth of being. The land of the dead is not one land, but many. For each sentient race born into the cosmos, human, alien, star-forged, ocean-born, or flame-descended, there exists a corresponding realm of judgment, tuned to the frequency of that species' soul. The universe does not judge all beings by one measure, for justice without understanding is cruelty. Instead, the cosmos is ordered by balance, and balance requires that each soul be weighed according to the laws it was capable of knowing. For humanity, the land of the dead is presided over by the Aes, known in ancient tongues as the Aes, those who were once human, who lived, suffered, learned, failed, repented, and ultimately transcended. They are not angels born perfect, nor gods forged whole. They are us, perfected through ordeal. They stand beside the gods not as servants, but as administrators, judges, teachers, and witnesses. When the human soul arrives in the land of the dead, it arrives naked of illusion. Titles, wealth, nationality, belief, and reputation fall away like dust from old bones. What remains is the soul's karmic record, a living ledger written not in words but in resonance. Each soul is accompanied by its spirit guides, themselves IC, in various stages of service. These guides are not external watchers, but companions who walked invisibly beside the soul throughout life. They recorded not merely actions but intent, for the cosmos understands that harm done unknowingly is not equal to harm done in willful darkness. Before the scales of justice, the soul is weighed. The scales do not measure sin as a list of crimes, but as density, how heavy the soul has become through cruelty, greed, fear, and refusal to learn. Love lightens the soul, compassion refines it, wisdom polishes it, hatred weighs it down. And when the scales settle, the judgment is pronounced, not as a sentence of vengeance, but as a necessary consequence, aligned with the soul's own state of becoming. There are 4 possible paths. First, there are those whose souls are so burdened, so corrupted by cruelty freely chosen and harm knowingly inflicted, that they cannot yet remain within the higher harmonics of creation. These souls are condemned to the underworld, not for eternal damnation, but for purification through consequence. Second, there are those whose souls shine lightly upon the scales, who learned, who erred yet repented, who chose compassion more often than cruelty, and who understood the sacredness of life. These souls transcend to Cernunnos, the land of ever-young light. Third, there are those whose souls are heavy, yet not irredeemable. Their failings were real, but born more of ignorance than malice. These are reborn into the animal kingdom, where instinct, humility, and service to the living web of nature will teach what intellect failed to grasp. Fourth, and most common of all, are the souls whose scales rest in equilibrium. Neither light enough to transcend, nor heavy enough to descend. These souls are reborn as human beings, return to the mortal realm to try again, to refine, to learn, to choose more wisely next time. Thus, death is not an ending, but an examination, and life itself is the test. 2. Cernunnos, the realm of ever-living light. Beyond judgment, beyond fear, beyond the turning wheel of birth and death, lies Cernunnos, the Druidic heaven, the realm of the ever-young, the luminous sanctuary where the gods and the IC dwell together. Cernunnos is not a place of clouds and thrones, nor a reward of idle bliss. It is a realm of purpose, a living university of the soul, suspended within the multiverse like a jewel of impossible light. Here, matter yields to energy, and energy yields to consciousness. Time does not pass, it deepens. Souls who transcend to Cernunnos are transformed. They become beings of light and intention, no longer bound by flesh, yet still shaped by memory, empathy, and identity. They do not forget their humanity. Rather, they perfect it. Within Cernunnos stands what the ancient Druids called the Akashic University, not a building, but a field of knowing where all knowledge of human experience is preserved. Here, transcended souls study the nature of reality, ethics, civilizations, and consciousness itself. They learn how worlds rise and fall, how cultures evolve, how suffering emerges, and how it can be alleviated. From this realm come the teachers, guides, and judges who watch over humanity. It is here that the great transcended humans dwell, those known in history as prophets, sages, avatars, and enlightened ones. Jesus of Nazareth, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the Buddha, Krishna, Laozi, and countless others known and unknown across time and star systems. They are not worshipped as gods among the IC, but honored as successful graduates of the mortal ordeal. And the gods themselves dwell here. The gods are not tribal possessions, nor jealous rulers bound to single cultures. They are archetypal intelligences, cosmic forces of order, creativity, destruction, wisdom, love, and balance. Humanity has always known them, though under different names. The Celtic Dagda, the Hindu Brahma, the Norse Odin, the Egyptian Ta, the Sumerian Enki, these are not separate beings but cultural lenses through which the same divine intelligences were perceived. Every civilization names the gods according to its own language, landscape, and fears. Thus, heaven has always been one realm, though humanity has described it 1,000 ways. Cernunnos is a realm of compassionate labor. Souls who dwell there work endlessly, not out of obligation, but out of love, to guide mortal civilizations toward wisdom, to intervene subtly in moments of great peril, and to ensure the balance of the cosmic order. No soul is forced to remain. Some choose, after ages of service, to return again to the mortal realm, to be born once more as teachers, reformers, or silent helpers. Even heaven is not an end, but a stage of becoming. 3. The underworld. Beneath the harmonic layers of light lies a realm spoken of in fear and misunderstanding, the underworld. It is not hell as imagined by vengeful theology, nor a place of arbitrary torture. It is a realm of consequence, engineered by the cosmos itself to confront souls with the suffering they caused. The underworld is shaped by resonance. Each soul experiences a reality tailored precisely to its own karmic weight. Those who inflicted pain will feel pain, not as punishment, but as education through empathy. Those who dehumanized others will experience dehumanization. Those who ruled through terror will taste powerlessness. Time in the underworld is elastic. A sentence may feel like centuries, or like moments stretched into unbearable clarity. Demons are not rulers here. They are manifestations, forms generated by the soul's own unresolved darkness. The greatest torment is not fire or agony, but self-recognition, the moment when the soul finally understands what it has done. Repentance is the key. A soul that refuses to repent remains trapped, not by external bars, but by its own denial. The underworld has no jailers, it has only mirrors. When repentance is genuine, when the soul truly comprehends its errors and desires transformation, it is released. But release does not mean immediate ascension. The soul descends first to the lower world, to relearn humility through instinct and service. Thus, even hell is not eternal, unless the soul chooses eternity within it. 4. The mortal realm. The mortal realm is the most difficult of all worlds, and the most sacred. It is here that souls are tested under the harshest conditions: limited memory, limited power, limited time. Here, the soul must act without certainty, love without proof, and choose goodness without guarantee of reward. The mortal realm is samsara, the turning wheel. It is a university designed not for comfort, but for growth. Every struggle is a lesson. Every loss is an examination. Every joy is a glimpse of what awaits beyond the veil. The gods do not demand perfection, only learning. To live well is not to live without sin, but to recognize one's errors, to develop empathy, creativity, intellect, and moral courage. Art, science, love, sacrifice, curiosity. These are not distractions from spirituality. They are its very instruments. The soul that learns to remain compassionate in suffering, ethical in power, and humble in success becomes light enough to transcend. Life is not a punishment, it is a chance. V. The lower world. The animal spirit realm beneath the mortal realm, yet closer to the heart of nature, lies the lower world, the animal spirit realm. Here dwell the souls of animals, unburdened by moral judgment as humans understand it. Animals do not sin. They act according to instinct and balance, yet their souls evolve nonetheless. In the lower world, animal souls prepare for future journeys. Some return again as animals, refining their instinctual wisdom. Others, after many cycles of service to the web of life, are promoted. At the moment of human conception, certain animal souls, those who have demonstrated loyalty, compassion, sacrifice, or intelligence, are permitted to enter the mortal realm as humans. This is not a fall, but an ascension. Thus, humanity is born not only of flesh, but of the long journey of life itself. Epilogue. The cosmos is not cruel, it is just. Every realm exists not to punish or reward, but to teach. Every soul is a student. Every life is an examination. Every death is a review. And beyond all realms, beyond even the gods, lies the great balance, the silent intelligence that ensures no effort is wasted, no lesson forgotten, and no soul truly lost. What we call destiny is simply the curriculum we have yet to complete. The Druids, keepers of the living world. The veiled ones of the ancient world. Before the rise of empires, before cathedrals crowned the hills of Europe, before history learned to write itself in ink and stone, there existed a priesthood whose knowledge was carried not in books, but in memory, ritual, and the living land itself. They were known to the Romans as Druidi, to the Greeks, philosopher-priests of the barbarian north. To their own people, they were simply the wise. The Druids were not a single institution, nor a uniform order bound by rigid doctrine. They were a class, a calling, and a cosmic function within Celtic society, mediators between humankind, the gods, and the earth. Their authority did not rest on crowns or armies, but on knowledge of the unseen laws that govern life, death, and renewal. To understand the Druids is to step into a world where land is sacred, time is cyclical, and the divine walks openly among mortals. 2. The world of the Celts, a sacred landscape. The Celtic world was not defined by borders, but by relationship. From Ireland and Britain to Gaul, Iberia, and Central Europe, Celtic peoples shared a worldview rooted in animism, the belief that all things possess spirit. Rivers were not resources, they were goddesses. Mountains were not obstacles, they were ancestors made stone. Forests were not wilderness, but temples without walls. The Druids arose as the interpreters of this living cosmos. They understood the land as a vast, breathing organism governed by natural law, seasonal rhythm, and cosmic balance. Humanity did not stand above nature, but within it, bound by reciprocal obligation. To live rightly was to live in harmony with the earth gods, those divine forces immanent in soil, sun, moon, storm, and seed. 3. Who were the Druids? Classical writers give us fragments, distorted by fear and fascination. Julius Caesar, writing in Commentari de Bello Gallico, describes the Druids as concerned with divine worship, the proper performance of sacrifices, and the interpretation of ritual questions. They determine rewards and punishments. Yet Caesar saw them through the lens of an imperial conqueror. What he called control, the Celts called balance. The Druidic order was traditionally divided into 3 sacred functions, later preserved in medieval Irish sources. 1. Druids, philosophers, theologians, judges, and cosmologists. 2. Bards, poets, historians, and keepers of lineage. 3. Ovats, Vates, seers, healers, and diviners. Together, they formed a triune priesthood, reflecting the Celtic obsession with threes: land, sea, and sky, past, present, and future, birth, death, and rebirth. Training as a Druid could take 20 years or more. Knowledge was transmitted orally through complex verse structures designed to preserve accuracy across generations. Writing sacred knowledge down was forbidden, not because literacy was unknown, but because wisdom was meant to live within the soul, not on parchment. 4. The teachings of the Druids. At the heart of Druidic philosophy lay several core principles. 1. The immortality of the soul. The Druids taught that the soul does not perish, but passes through cycles of existence. A belief that stunned Roman observers and terrified imperial generals, for warriors who do not fear death are difficult to conquer. This belief echoes through Celtic myth as reincarnation, other-world journeys, and ancestral return. 2. The 3 worlds reality was understood as layered. The middle world, the realm of humans. The other world, a luminous realm of gods, spirits, and the dead. The underworld, ancestral deep. Not a hell, but a womb of renewal. The boundaries between these worlds were thin, especially at certain times of year. 3. Awen was sacred inspiration, the divine breath that flows through poetry, prophecy, and creation itself. To receive Awen was to become a vessel for the god's voice. 5. the sacred festivals. The Wheel of the Year time itself was holy. The Druids marked the year not by months, but by 4 great fire festivals, aligned with agricultural and cosmic thresholds. Samhain, October 31st, November 1st, the Celtic New Year. The veil between worlds thinned. Ancestors walked among the living. This was a time of prophecy, remembrance, and reckoning. Imbolc, February 1st, a festival of purification and light, sacred to Brigid, goddess of fire, healing, and poetry. The first stirrings of life beneath frozen ground. Beltane, May 1st, the festival of fertility and sacred union. Fires were lit on hilltops, cattle driven between flames for blessing. Sexuality and life force were honored, not shamed. Lughnasadh, August 1st, a harvest festival honoring Lugh, god of skill and sovereignty. Games, marriages, and feasting marked the first fruits of the year. Later traditions added the solstices and equinoxes, particularly in Britain, where stone circles like Stonehenge align with solar events far older than the Druids themselves. Sites the Druids inherited and reconsecrated. 6. The gods of the earth. The Druids did not worship distant sky tyrants. Their gods were local, intimate, and many-formed. Among the most prominent, the Dagda, the good god, lord of abundance, death and rebirth. Brigid, triple goddess of fire, healing, and inspiration. Lugh, solar hero, master of all arts. Danu, primordial mother, source of rivers and peoples. Cernunnos, horned god of wild nature, cycles, and liminality. These were not abstract symbols. They were forces encountered in forest clearings, storm-lashed hills, and sacred wells. 7. Druids as judges, healers, and kingsmakers. Druids served as law speakers and arbiters of justice. Their rulings were binding even upon kings. A ruler who defied the Druids risked not only political collapse, but spiritual imbalance, crop failure, and loss of divine favor. They were also healers, versed in herbal lore, trance states, and soul retrieval. Many plants sacred to modern herbalism, mistletoe, yew, oak, hawthorn, were central to Druidic practice. The oak in particular symbolized endurance, wisdom, and the axis of worlds. The very word druid is often linked to druid, oak knower, or one with deep knowledge. 8. Suppression, survival, and the long forgetting. With the Roman conquest came systematic destruction of Druidic power. Sacred groves were cut down. Druids were outlawed, executed, or absorbed into the margins of society. Later, Christianity completed what Rome began, yet even then, the old gods did not vanish. They changed names. Brigid became Saint Brigid. Sacred wells became holy springs. The other world became fairy. The Druids retreated into story, song, and folklore, awaiting a time when the world would listen again. 9. The modern return. Druids in the age of seeking. In the modern era, as industrial society fractures its bond with the earth, the Druid path has re-emerged, not as a reconstruction of the past, but as a living tradition reborn. Modern Druidry emphasizes ecological responsibility, spiritual sovereignty, ancestral remembrance, direct experience of nature. For today's seekers, the Druids are no longer a lost priesthood, but a call to re-enter right relationship with the living world. X. The earth gods remembered. The Druids were never merely priests. They were guardians of balance, keepers of memory, and voices of the earth itself. Their wisdom reminds us that civilization divorced from nature is a sickness, and that healing begins when we remember who we are and where we stand. The earth gods still speak, in wind through oak leaves, in fire on the hill, in the quiet knowing that the land is alive and watching. 11. Entering the sacred, how Druidic ritual. Work to modern minds shaped by temples and scriptures, Druidic ritual can seem elusive. There were no permanent sanctuaries in the classical sense, no stone-built churches or enclosed holy halls, at least not originally. Instead, the Druids practiced within living sanctuaries, Oak groves, river fords, hilltops, bogs, caves, and ancient stone circles inherited from earlier peoples. A ritual space was not constructed so much as recognized. The Celts believed certain places were already charged with power, thin places where the worlds overlapped. The role of the Druid was to open the gate, not force it. Rituals followed a clear structure. 1. Purification, fasting, washing in sacred water. Smoke cleansing. 2. Invocation, calling the gods, ancestors, and spirits of place. 3. Offering, gifts given to maintain cosmic reciprocity. 4. Divination or judgment, interpreting the will of the gods. 5. Closing the circle, sealing the rite to restore balance. These rites were not symbolic theater. They were believed to actively influence reality, weather, fertility, war, kingship, and fate itself. 12. Fire, the sacred mediator. Fire was central to Druidic practice, seen as a bridge between worlds. Flame consumed offerings and transformed them into smoke, which rose to the gods. This act of transformation mirrored the soul's journey after death. At festivals such as Beltane and Samhain, massive bonfires were lit on hilltops. These fires were not merely celebratory, they were apotropaic, meant to ward off chaos and renew the land. Cattle were driven between twin fires to cleanse disease. Ashes were scattered on fields to bless crops. Torches carried from the sacred fire relit hearths across the community, symbolizing the rebinding of society to divine order. Fire was also dangerous. Uncontrolled flame represented cosmic imbalance, and thus only those properly trained, Druids and Avats, were permitted to oversee sacred fires. 13th, water, wells, and the language of offerings. If fire carried prayers upward, water carried them downward, into the depths of the otherworld. Across the Celtic world, archaeologists have uncovered thousands of ritual deposits in rivers, lakes, springs, and bogs. Swords bent beyond use, shields pierced, cauldrons, torques, brooches, coins, animal remains, and occasionally human bodies were offered to the waters. These were not discarded objects, they were gifts. In Celtic cosmology, water was a threshold substance, a mirror of the otherworld. Rivers were goddesses, wells were mouths of the earth. To give something of value was to enter a contract with the gods. The famous River Thames, Seine, and Shannon have yielded immense ritual hoards. At Lyn Cerrig Bach in Anglesey, once a Druidic stronghold, over 150 ritual objects were found, deliberately broken and submerged. This was sacrificed not as destruction, but as transference. 14. The oak and the golden sickle. No symbol is more closely associated with the Druids than the oak tree. The oak was the king of the forest, long-lived, lightning-struck, and host to mistletoe, the rare plant believed to carry celestial power because it grew neither from soil nor seed. Pliny the Elder describes a sacred ritual in which Druids, dressed in white, climbed oak trees and cut mistletoe with a golden sickle, catching it in a white cloth so it would not touch the ground. Bulls were sacrificed and the plant used for healing and protection. While Roman authors may have embellished such accounts, archaeology and folklore confirm the ritual importance of mistletoe, yew, and oak in Celtic medicine and magic. The oak grove itself functioned as a cathedral of living pillars, its roots in the underworld, trunk in the human realm, and crown in the sky. 21st, Druids and war, the spiritual backbone of resistance. To the Romans, the Druids were dangerous not because they wielded weapons, but because they wielded meaning. Empires are built on obedience. Druidic culture was built on belonging. Where Rome demanded loyalty to an abstract state, the Druids anchored loyalty to land, kin, and the gods of place. This made them profoundly subversive. To conquer Celtic territory was one thing. To conquer the Celtic soul required the destruction of its priesthood. Classical accounts describe Druids walking unarmed between opposing armies, halting battle with raised staffs and spoken words. Whether exaggerated or not, this speaks to their authority over warriors. They determined when war was just, when it must end, and when bloodshed threatened cosmic balance. Before battle, Druids and Avats conducted rites to read omens in birds and weather, bless weapons and warriors, bind oaths before the gods, curse enemies through ritual satire and prophecy. Victory was not merely tactical, it was cosmic approval. 22. The power of the spoken word. In a culture without sacred texts, speech itself was magic. Words were believed to shape reality. Praise could elevate a king, satire could destroy him. A druid's curse was feared as much as a blade, for it was thought to unravel a person's luck, fertility, and lineage. The bards, trained for decades, preserved genealogy, law, and myth through elaborate poetic meters. These were not embellishments. They were legal and spiritual records. To be erased from song was a fate worse than death. This belief echoes in later Irish law, where a king who lost the poet's favor lost legitimacy itself. The Druids understood something modern cultures often forget. Language does not merely describe the world, it calls it into being. 23. Women of power, female druids, and priestesses. Contrary to later patriarchal religious systems, Celtic spirituality afforded significant spiritual authority to women. Classical writers mention female druids and prophetesses, women who lived apart, dressed in white or black, serving as oracles, healers, and war seers. The island of Mona, Anglesey, a major Druidic center, was said to be defended by women who screamed prophecies and invoked curses as Roman troops advanced. In Irish and Welsh mythology, powerful women repeatedly occupy sacred roles. The Morrigan, goddess of prophecy, war, and sovereignty. Brigid, priestess, goddess of fire and inspiration. Medb, queen whose authority derives from sacred kingship. Scathach, warrior priestess and initiator. These figures reflect a worldview in which spiritual power flowed through both genders, and often through women in particular during liminal times of war, death, and transformation. The later demonization of such women as witches represents not their absence, but their suppression. 24. The Roman assault on the sacred. The most devastating blow to Druidry came in the 1st century CE. Under Emperor Claudius and later Suetonius Paulinus, Rome launched a deliberate campaign to annihilate the Druids. The assault on Anglesey, described vividly by Tacitus, was not merely military, it was symbolic. Sacred groves were burned, altars destroyed, Druids slaughtered. Rome understood what later powers would relearn again and again. If you break a people's spiritual spine, their resistance collapses. Although Druidry was officially outlawed, it did not vanish. It went underground, migrating into rural life, oral tradition, and the margins of Christianized society. 25. Christianity in the long transformation. When Christianity arrived in the Celtic world, it encountered a population already deeply spiritual, already attuned to ritual, sacred time, and holy places. Rather than erase everything, the church absorbed and repurposed much of the old religion. Sacred wells became holy wells. Goddesses became saints. Seasonal festivals became Christian holy days. Brigid, perhaps the clearest example, was seamlessly transformed from goddess to saint, retaining her associations with fire, healing, poetry, and fertility. Monasticism in Ireland adopted Druidic reverence for nature, producing illuminated manuscripts, poetic theology, and a spirituality far more earth-centered than its continental counterparts. Yet something vital was lost: the cosmic role of the Druids as mediators of balance between humanity and the earth itself. 26. Druids in myth, fairy, and Arthurian legend. As formal Druidry faded, its memory lived on in mythic disguise. The Druids became wizards, wise women, hermits, seers, fairy lords. The figure of Merlin, half wild man, half prophet, embodies the last Druid archetype, mad with vision, rooted in the forest, speaking truth to kings. Arthurian legend preserves Druidic themes of sacred kingship, enchanted landscapes, otherworld journeys, and the wounded land awaiting healing. Fairy lore, too, carries echoes of the old religion. The Seedae are not mere sprites. They are the gods remembered differently, displaced into parallel realms when Christianity rebranded them as non-divine. 27. The revival. from Romanticism to modern Druidry. The modern Druid revival began not in forests, but in books. In the 18th and 19th centuries, poets, antiquarians, and nationalists sought to reclaim pre-Christian identity. Figures such as Iolo Morgan, though controversial and sometimes fraudulent, reignited interest in Druidic symbolism, ritual, and Welsh cultural memory. The 20th century saw the emergence of organized Druid orders, blending scholarship, folklore, ecology, and spiritual experimentation. While these movements cannot claim unbroken lineage, they do not pretend to. Modern Druidry is a response to crisis. In an age of ecological collapse, alienation, and spiritual hunger, the Druid path offers reverence for the earth as sacred, responsibility rather than dominion, ancestral continuity rather than apocalyptic rupture, spiritual sovereignty rather than imposed belief. 28. The Druids today, seekers, not priests. Today's Druids are not judges of kings or arbiters of law. They are listeners, guardians, and witnesses. They gather at solstices, they tend sacred groves. They speak for rivers without voices. Some see Druidry as a spiritual path, others as cultural reclamation, others still as ecological activism rooted in mythic consciousness. What unites them is not dogma, but relationship. 29. What the Druids meant and still mean. To the ancient Celts, the Druids were the keepers of meaning in a dangerous world. They ensured that death did not become nihilism, that power did not become tyranny, and that the land was never reduced to property. To modern seekers, the Druids represent a memory of wholeness, a time when spirituality was not separated from soil, season, and sky. They remind us that the earth is not inert matter, but a living being in covenant with humanity. 30. The earth gods speak again. The Druids never promised salvation. They promised belonging, not escape from the world, but participation in it, not transcendence of nature, but communion with it. In the age of concrete and code, the old voices return, not as nostalgia, but as necessity. The earth gods are not dead. They wait, in root and river, in fire and stone, in those who remember that to live is to listen. 31st, standing at the edge of an ending, every civilization believes itself permanent until the land proves otherwise. The ancient Celts understood this truth intimately. Empires rose and fell around them, but the earth endured. The Druids did not measure success by expansion or accumulation, but by continuity, the ability of land, people, and spirit to survive together across generations. Today, humanity stands at a precipice more profound than any faced by Rome or the tribal kingdoms of old. Climate collapse, mass extinction, ecological exhaustion, and spiritual alienation mark what many now call the Anthropocene, an age defined by humanity's severance from the living world. From a Druidic perspective, this is not merely an environmental crisis, it is a mythic failure. 32. Ecology is sacred law. For the Druids, ecology was not a science, it was cosmic law. The land was not a passive stage upon which history unfolded. It was an active participant. Crops failed when kings broke oaths. Storms came when balance was violated. Prosperity followed harmony. Modern science increasingly echoes this ancient insight. Ecosystems collapse when feedback loops are ignored. Rivers die when treated as waste channels. Forests burn when reduced to commodities. Druidic wisdom offers no technical fixes, but it provides something more fundamental, an ethical framework rooted in reverence. In this framework, the earth is a living being, not a resource. Humanity is a participant, not a master. Responsibility flows both ways. Care given is care returned. To harm the land is to harm oneself, not metaphorically, but literally. 33. Mythic consciousness in a disenchanted age. Modern culture prides itself on rationality, yet suffers from a profound loss of meaning. The old myths have been stripped away, replaced with narratives of endless growth, technological salvation, and human exceptionalism. The Druids understood myth not as falsehood, but as orientation. Myth answers the questions science cannot. Who are we in relation to the world? What do we owe the dead and the unborn? Where does meaning reside when certainty fails? Mythic consciousness does not reject science. It contextualizes it. It places knowledge within a story that affirms life, interconnection, and consequence. Without myth, humanity becomes dangerous to itself. 34. The return of the sacred earth. Across the world, people are turning once more to earth-centered spirituality, not out of nostalgia, but out of necessity. Indigenous voices long silenced are being heard again. Sacred ecology, deep time awareness, and ancestral remembrance are re-entering public discourse. Even secular movements now speak of rights of rivers, legal personhood for forests, and planetary stewardship. These are not new ideas, they are ancient truths resurfacing. The Druids would recognize this moment as a threshold, a liminal crossing where old stories die and new ones must be born, or civilization collapses into silence. 35. Planetary ethics. What the Druids would demand of us? If the Druids were here today, not as relics, but as living voices, what would they ask? Not worship, not obedience. They would ask for relationship. A Druidic planetary ethic would demand 1. Reciprocity. Take no more than you give. 2. Restraint. Power without wisdom is destruction. 3. Responsibility to ancestors, descendants, and land. 4. Local belonging. Rerouting culture in place. 5. Sacred limits. Recognizing boundaries that must not be crossed. These principles stand in direct opposition to extractive capitalism, unchecked technological acceleration, and the myth of infinite growth. The Druids would call such systems what they are: violations of cosmic law. 36. Rewilding the human spirit. Rewilding is often spoken of in ecological terms, the return of wolves, forests, and wetlands. But the deeper rewilding must occur within humanity itself. The Druids knew that a tame spirit breeds a tame world. To rewild the human soul is to restore. Seasonal awareness, ritualized gratitude, ancestral memory, acceptance of death as transformation, joy in belonging rather than possession. This does not require abandoning modern life. It requires remembering how to stand within it without domination. 37. The new Druids, guardians of the threshold. The future will not be saved by priesthoods alone. The new Druids are not defined by robes or titles, but by function. Ecologists who speak for ecosystems, artists who restore mythic imagination, activists who defend land and water, teachers who reconnect children to nature, elders who remember what progress forgot. In Druidic terms, they are keepers of the threshold, standing between destruction and renewal. 38. The old ways are not behind us. The greatest misunderstanding of modern spirituality is the belief that ancient wisdom belongs to the past. The old ways were never a single path frozen in time. They were a way of seeing, adaptable, relational, and alive. The Druids did not seek to escape history. They sought to guide it in harmony with the earth. That task remains unfinished. 39. The final teaching. The Druids left no scriptures, no commandments carved in stone. Their teaching was lived, not written. But if their wisdom could be condensed into a single truth, it might be this: the earth does not belong to us, we belong to the earth. To remember this is to step out of exile and back into relationship. 40. The circle closes and opens. The Druids believed time was not a straight line, but a spiral. What was lost could return. What was forgotten could be remembered. What was broken could be healed, if the will existed. The earth gods are not myths of a dead past. They are voices of a living future. They speak now, not in thunder or prophecy, but in droughts and floods, in forests that burn and seas that rise, asking a question humanity can no longer avoid. Will you listen? The old ways do not demand belief. They demand relationship, and the circle, once broken, now waits to be restored. The earth gods. Conclusion: the circle remembered. At the end of every true journey, there is not an ending, but a return. The Earth Gods has taken us across ages, through forests older than memory, through stone circles aligned to vanished suns, through the silence left behind when sacred names were forbidden and sacred places were broken. Yet what remains even now is not absence. It is presence, quiet, patient, enduring. The gods of the old world did not die. They withdrew. They sank into soil and root, into story and song, into the half-remembered instincts that still stir in the human soul when firelight flickers, when the moon is full, when a forest feels alive and watching. These gods were never meant to rule from distant heavens. They were born of the earth itself, and to the earth they return, waiting for remembrance. Cernunnos, the wild heart of life. Cernunnos stands at the threshold of all things. Horned, seated in stillness, surrounded by beasts, he is not a god of domination, but of belonging. He does not command nature. He is nature in its untamed balance. Predator and prey, growth and decay, seed and bone. In Cernunnos, the ancient world recognized a truth modern civilization struggles to accept, that life feeds on life, and that death is not an enemy, but a passage. He governs the green pulse beneath the surface, the instincts, cycles, and rhythms that no law can erase. To deny Cernunnos is to deny the wildness within ourselves. To remember him is to remember that humanity is not separate from the living web, but woven into it. Flesh of the forest, breath of the beast. The mother goddess, womb of all worlds. Before names, before forms, before temples and titles, there was the mother. She is the ground beneath every god, the dark soil from which all myths grow. She is the womb that receives the dead and the matrix that births the living. In her, creation and dissolution are not opposites, but companions. The mother goddess was known by many names: Danu, Anu, Dana, but her essence was always the same: immanence. She was not distant. She was here, in rivers and valleys, in breasts and blood, in harvest and hunger. Civilizations that honored her understood limits. They knew that to take without gratitude was sacrilege, and that the earth remembers every wound. When she was dethroned, the balance shifted. The sacred became abstract. The world became a thing. And yet, she endures, silent, fertile, inexhaustible. Not forgiving, but patient, waiting for humanity to relearn how to kneel without submission and stand without arrogance. Étaín, the soul that returns. Étaín is the goddess of becoming. Her story is one of transformation, loss, and rebirth, of a soul cast through many lives, many forms, many loves. She embodies the ancient Celtic understanding that identity is not fixed, and that the soul's journey is long, intricate, and purposeful. In Étaín, the Druids taught that nothing essential is ever lost. What is taken from us, through death, exile, or forgetting, may return changed but not diminished. Her myth is a mirror of the Druidic belief in reincarnation and continuity, the spiral path rather than the straight line. In a world obsessed with permanence, Étaín reminds us that change is sacred, and that endurance lies not in resistance, but in renewal. Brigid, flame of inspiration and healing. Where Cernunnos rules the wild, Brigid rules the hearth. She is fire without destruction, light without tyranny. Goddess of poetry, healing, smithcraft, and sacred wells, Brigid is the spark that transforms raw matter into meaning. She is the divine breath that enters the poet, the healer's hands, the forge of creation. Brigid survived conquest more visibly than most. Transformed into a saint, her temples reborn as churches, her sacred flame tended in Christian guise. Yet beneath the veneer, she remained unchanged. She teaches that creativity is not indulgence, but responsibility. That healing is not escape from pain, but engagement with it. That words, when spoken with truth, can mend what weapons cannot. In Brigid, the old world speaks gently, but firmly, of compassion rooted in strength. Belenus, light that renews. Belenus is the fire of the sun, not as a tyrant in the sky, but as a restorer. His light is not conquest, but clarity. He presides over healing springs, seasonal renewal, and the life-giving warmth that sustains all things. Where darkness threatens stagnation, Belenus brings motion. Where despair settles, he brings dawn. The Druids understood light not as moral superiority, but as balance. Too much sun scorches, too little freezes. Belenus teaches moderation, the sacred middle way between extremes. In an age addicted to excess, his wisdom is urgent. Illumination must serve life, not blind it. Gaia, the living planet. Gaia is not metaphor. She is the earth as organism, self-regulating, interconnected, alive. Long dismissed as poetic fancy, Gaia has returned through science itself, through the recognition that Earth's systems behave as a single, complex entity. The ancient intuition has been confirmed by modern observation. The Druids would not be surprised. They knew the land responded to human behavior, that rivers carried memory, that forests fell silent when violated. Gaia was never passive. She was always in relationship. Today, as planetary systems destabilize, Gaia speaks again, not in myth, but in consequence. Flood and fire, collapse and correction, not punishment, but response. To live ethically on this planet is to live as if Gaia is watching, because she is. The Ias Seda, the hidden continuum. The Ias Seda are not fairy tales. They are the gods remembered sideways. When the old deities were driven from open worship, they did not vanish. They withdrew into the other world, into hills and mounds, into parallel time, into the realm between perception and dream. The Seda represent the continuity of consciousness beyond human centrality. They are reminders that the world is shared, with intelligences older, subtler, and less forgiving than ourselves. To the Druids, the Seda were not fantasies. They were neighbors, dangerous, beautiful, bound by laws as strict as any human code. To offend them was to offend the land itself. In a desacralized age, belief in the Seda may seem quaint, yet the truth they carry remains potent. We are not alone and never have been. The Druids, guardians of balance. In standing between gods and people, land and law, past and future, were the Druids. They were not prophets of salvation. They were keepers of balance. They taught that power must answer to the earth. That kingship was a covenant, not a right. That memory was sacred. That death was not failure, but function. The Druids did not promise heaven. They promised belonging. Their destruction was not accidental. A culture that teaches restraint, reverence, and interconnection is incompatible with empire. And so the Druids were silenced, not because they were primitive, but because they were dangerous. Dangerous to systems that thrive on forgetting. The choice before us. The gods we have spoken of do not ask for temples. They ask for attention. They do not demand belief. They demand relationship. Humanity now faces the same test the ancient world faced again and again. Whether it will live with the earth or against it. The old ways do not offer easy answers, but they offer orientation, a compass rather than a map. Cernunnos asks us to remember our wildness. The mother asks us to remember our limits. Étaín asks us to trust transformation. Brigid asks us to heal and create responsibly. Belenus asks us to seek balance in light. Gaia asks us to live as if the future matters. The Ias Seda ask us to tread lightly. The Druids ask us to listen. The circle remains unbroken. This documentary ends where it began, not in certainty, but in awareness. The Earth gods are not relics of a vanished age. They are patterns of truth, woven into reality itself. Ignore them, and the world unravels. Remember them, and the possibility of renewal returns. The old religions did not fail. They were interrupted. And now, as the world stands again at the edge of reckoning, their voices rise, not to rule, but to remind. The earth is alive, the gods are near, and the choice, as it has always been, is ours. End of the Earth Gods, written by Bloodstone.